going on, everybody? How's it going? Paul Turner here from the discipleproject.net, here with Office Hours. My goal in tuning in, this is normally done at 11 o'clock. Today I had to do it a little bit different because of appointments and things like that. So glad to be here, though. Normally it is on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. and goes to about 11:20, something like that, for as many questions that we may have, and so just be able to share and be able to answer some youth ministry questions. I know it's Wednesday, so it's possible that you may be, needing needing more answers than usual, possibly on a Wednesday. So I'm glad just to be here, just to be able to serve and be a part. So yeah, we're going to cover a few questions. Before I do that, though, the prayer time in the morning will be back on schedule next Wednesday, 8 a.m. So if you would like to join me for prayer for your youth group, if you're a youth ministry, at 8 a.m. on Wednesdays, that will be there. And then, like I said, we'll get back at 11 o'clock on 11 o'clock office hours on Wednesday. And so, yeah, before we get into answering questions today, I do want to let you know that I do have a coaching service. I have, be able to do that for youth workers like yourself. And so let me go ahead and just put this up here. It's called My Monthly Mentor. And what it is My Monthly Mentor is just a once a month, 1 hour meeting that we have with youth pastors who want to be involved in that. And where you get much more direct answers. Like today, we're going to answer questions that, come in randomly. But if you want something very specific, detailed, step by step, getting down into the how do we do this kind of stuff, that's what My Monthly Mentor is for. And so if you're interested in that, just let me know. You can add me. I am a 30-year youth ministry veteran. Add me to your team. And that's what it is. That's what coaching is. It's just adding somebody with a little more experience to your team that we would meet every month and talk about the things that are important to you. Talk about the things that are happening in your youth ministry and talk about, how do we, your question may be, how do I grow the youth ministry? Or how do I disciple kids? Or how do I do, anything? It could be social media. It could be any of those things. And those are the things that we want to talk about together so that you can come up with a battle plan, right? That's what I would like for you. I would like you to be able to walk away from every session saying, number one, I feel good. I feel good about where I'm at because we've just talked it over. I have somebody I can talk to. And then the second thing is, not only do you want to feel good, you want to feel good because you feel prepared now. You walk away with some tools in your toolbox, so to speak, to be able to do some of the things that you want to do. And so if that is of any interest to you, I'll put a link down in the comments down there below, the doobly-doo as they call it. And I'll put that down there if you're interested. So I just have two questions today, and then a thought that I just had that for the first time is going to just throw it out here to you guys, and you tell me what you think. So the first one is, how do I overcome rejection? How do I overcome rejection? And this is coming from a place where they're being let go for not achieving certain goals. And so naturally, I've been there. Like anytime you're fired, it's because 9 times out of 10 is you didn't meet a certain set of expectations, right? So you didn't meet your goals. You didn't meet the expectations that were there for you. And, and I don't think it's fair, right? When we talk about scriptures, well, they'll say that, hey, look, they rejected Jesus. And, Jesus said, if you follow me, you're going to get treated the same way. It's not quite, apples to apples here, okay? We're talking about a skill-based job versus beliefs in following Jesus, right? Now, there's plenty of youth pastors who got fired because they felt like they were doing things the way Jesus would do them. That's neither here nor there. I mean, I don't know if they were right or wrong. A lot of them probably right. Whereas the pastor or whomever said, yeah, we don't like that so much. Once again, every church is different. Every youth pastor is different. But when you get into the nitty gritty of overcoming rejection because you simply were not good enough in this for them. Let me make that's really important. How do you overcome rejection? You weren't good enough for them. That doesn't mean that you're not good enough for somebody else. And it doesn't mean you're not no good. The first thing we want to do, and I can only speak for myself, but I think we're all in the same ballpark, is the fact that when somebody fires you or lets you go or doesn't invite you back to something or whatever, you weren't good enough for them. And it's very quick to put a label on yourself to say, I'm no good for anybody now. That's just not true. You are just no good for them, for that group, for that church, for that organization. So part of overcoming rejection, I feel like it has a lot to do with saying, you know what, I wasn't good for them. To be able to isolate the incident and say, I wasn't the right fit for them. And you may, some people know that from the very, very beginning. You probably shouldn't take that job. But we all come in with our with hopeful expectations of those that we serve, and sometimes those needs aren't met by by those folks. We think it's going to go this way, and it goes that way. And so, number one, I think, is overcoming rejection is understand that you weren't the right fit for them. Understand that you can't take it any other way but personal. No matter how they explain it, no matter how much money they give you, no matter whatever they say to you, you will internalize the rejection. Okay, you will internalize and go, I did not do a thing. I did not do something well. I did not do something well over a long time. So yes, so can you overcome rejection? Yes, by first saying that you were not a right fit for them, but not necessarily for other people. You go get another job. You go get another youth pastor job. You may be a perfect fit for that church, right? So I think that's step one, overcome rejection, isolate the incident. The second thing is don't internalize it to the point where that you think that's your identity. Now you're a failure. I don't know how many times I've done that. I mean, I've been fired twice, not for anything illegal or immoral, but my skill set wasn't good enough. I was not good enough for them. It was good enough for me, but they didn't, it was not what they wanted at some point. And so for me, I just say, look, I can't internalize that to the point where now I label myself a failure. I have to be able to get up and say, you know what? I have a family. I have, goals and dreams. The Lord's leading me. The God is with me. This is not just the end of everything, that I still have a life. And clearly that worked out pretty good because, some 30, years later in the ministry, still here. I still fail, but I've gotten better at not internalizing the failure and thereby the rejection. And so the third thing, I would say the first thing is you weren't good enough for them. Number two, don't internalize the rejection. Don't label yourself a reject or a failure. And the third thing is learn from it, right? Part of overcoming rejection is to ask, why was I rejected? What is it about my skill set? And by the way, if you ask a pastor, say, look, I would like you to be as specific as possible, as painful as it might be. Why am I being let go? And I would like that in writing. Nothing wrong with asking for that. And then when you look through that list and say, okay, are these fair or unfair expectations? Did I know that when I signed up? Did I know that that was going to, that I was going to have to achieve certain goals, or were these hidden expectations? So then you have to say, are these fair and fair? And the fair ones, you have to say, okay, clearly then, if that's fair, then then what is it that I need to learn to get better at that? How do I need to improve that skill? And I think that's where, when I talked about earlier, talk about coaching. That's what coaching does. That's what I do in coaching, is I help you improve your skills. If you're not very good at preaching and the goal that you're supposed to meet is that you're supposed to deliver a concise gospel message every week, but you're not very good at that, then those are the things we work on. Coaching is not just about theory. It's about practice. It's about doing the thing that you are expected to do, that your boss is expected to do, that your pastor expects you to do. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. That's about overcoming rejection, is get better at your skills. Find a way to get better at them, whether that's through coaching, watching YouTube videos, reading books, listening to podcasts, taking notes, and then practicing, right? Practicing all the time when you're not in the room doing it, whatever it is, the practice you need to do, you just need to figure that out, right? And it depends too. You may be a young person, a young youth worker in your 20s. And if that's the case, well, you know what? You've learned a valuable lesson then, something you take with you. Certainly not the end. You're certainly not a failure. You're certainly not a reject. And that's, that's for some of you, that's just a word from the Lord to that. You're not a failure. We've all failed at things. We're not failures. Until we stop breathing, we're not going to be. In fact, when we stop breathing is the least failure we will be as believers, because we will be in the presence of God, and God will be saying to us, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So listen, Nobody, you're not dying a failure, and you're not going to be, resurrected a failure. Okay, it's just that simple. So you're not a reject, you're not a failure. You can get better. So that's my perspective on how you would overcome that. All right, second thing is talk about mentorship in ministry. Mentorship in ministry, and this is not for you per se, but it ties with you. It's like the question is, how do I find mentors for my students that are not me, right? How do I bring people in to then form these relationships that maybe will add more value to where I don't have to do everything, but there's a way of doing this that is beyond, when I can't be there. I can't be with a kid, 24/7. I have my own family. I got my own kids. So how do we build a mentorship program? Well, I don't know. I've never built like a whole, I know what we're thinking. We're thinking structurally an entire group of adults, or a group of adults that are, a part of a cohesive effort, one-on-one, to have this, mentorship with a student. Well, we think it's a good idea, and it is a good idea. The problem is that most students don't think it's a good idea because they don't understand the reason. Why do I need a mentor? Why do I need a personal individual? If you're my youth pastor, why do I need somebody extra? Why do I need somebody else? So conceptually, we go, yes, students need mentors in some way. Now, listen, they have plenty of mentors, right? They have parents, their parents, which also mentor them. They have teachers. They have coaches. They have club leaders, or whoever that may be. They have the internet, which is also mentoring them in some ways. So the question is, what can the church do? I think then if you're thinking, how do I get mentors for my students? I think the question is, what role are you filling? In other words, what does a mentor do in the case of the church that is not happening outside, right? And, whether that's, hey, look, I would like a once a month, mentorship program where all the kids meet at the church and all the adults that are mentoring them meet at the church, and they have lunch or breakfast or whatever it is, and they go somewhere in the church nearby to have a conversation. Or it's just sitting around the table. Maybe it's group mentorship. Individual mentorship gets wonky and gets funny when you're saying to another adult, I would like you to spend time with this student outside the context of the church, because that leads to a lot of other problems. Okay. And we've seen that in not only church, but in school, in everything, every area of life. So if you're wanting to do mentorship with your students and finding people who do that, there are students who are naturally drawn to people in your church who, who are, have a great personality, or who are, they're into sports, or they're an athlete, or they're into some certain thing. And so maybe it's a matter of connecting students. Like for me, I have one lady in our church who mentors girls, because we have a small youth group. We only have, 6, 7 students. And so when the girls are there, I don't do so much mentorship with them. I'll, teach Sunday school, do youth and all that. But in between that, there's a lot that goes on that in between the times when I'm with them, this lady in our church meets with them, talks with them, encourages them, prays with them. And I think too, part of having a mentorship program is not allowing your ego to get in the way, right? It's like, I can't meet all these needs. I can't do anything anyway. So to give away the ministry of mentoring, students, just being able to listen and feed into people and so forth. I think you have to be willing to give up your ego and not say, well, are they going to be better friends with them than I am? And I think that's part of maturity, that you mature out of that you're not so much worried about, what somebody's, whether the relationships are deeper or this way or that way, or they like me better. That's very high school. We have to give that up. So back then to saying, well, where do I find mentors? I think I would do it this way: an on-campus mentorship program once a month or once a quarter, where students get together that want to be mentored, adults in the church who you vet, who you do background checks on and everything, and say, we're going to meet once a quarter for breakfast, and just time where you talk and share together about whatever. Now you can do it in groups of 2 or 3. It doesn't have to be one-on-one unless that's a thing, but 2 or 3 kids might be good, if you want to do it that way. But yeah, and you have to have buy-in from the parents. It could be where this becomes something available outside the church. That, in other words, if there's a young person from the community that says, "Look, I would like a mentor. I need a mentor," or a parent, let's say a parent who's a single mom, and says, "Listen, my son or daughter needs mentorship. Can I bring them to that breakfast or that lunch?" Yeah, and they can sit and talk. It doesn't have to go beyond anything else. There's no there's key questions, but there's no necessarily outcome in the sense of your kid's going to come connect and see if they can connect with this adult leader that we have. It's all on campus. There's no numbers exchange. There's no outside the church contact. It's just whatever's happening here is happening here. And so in creating a mentorship program for students that does not rely upon yourself, think about it in terms of quarterly, adults that are interested that you vet, adults in your church that kids gravitate towards, right? Healthy adults that are members of your church, that you have this kind of convergence on a Saturday breakfast where these all come together. And so for an hour, 2 hour, 90 minutes that morning, there's a mentorship dynamic. And I think about this because, I'm involved. Sometimes I'm asked to go to a school, not for mentorship, but just to kind of listen to kids. This is in the public school system, and they do a thing where they bring in adults, from all places of life, and they sit and listen to this kid talk about their grades, how they're doing in their grades, and then we encourage them. We talk with them about how they feel about it. Do you have any questions for me? Anything I can help? Do you know what you need to do next? Do you know what you need to do to do this? And we have this brief, and literally the conversation is maybe 10 minutes long, if that. And so when you're talking about mentorship, it doesn't have to be very long. In fact, if it's an hour long, even if you did an hour, say most of the time it's going to be talking doing this, and then we're going to break off into our mentorship time. And that's some one-on-one, guys with guys, girls with girls. And then you sit and chat for 15 minutes. Then you come back and maybe kids share about what they learned, or a mentor shares their story about, why they love mentoring. Could be any of those things. It's an interesting dynamic that if I had that place in my church, it would be an interesting time. But that's a whole thing where you got to pitch it and say, okay, this is what I really think this is looking like. But I think we've all benefited from people in church who are our mentors, even as a kid. We had maybe people in church, maybe you had somebody in church who mentored you, who wasn't the youth pastor. And I think the more you decentralize the ability to mentor, right? You can't mentor everybody. But once you equip and train, it's part of equipping and training the saints for ministry, really. That once you do that and can do that, well, then you start thinking, well, once a quarter, we meet for an hour, 90 minutes for breakfast, have some mentorship time, one-on-ones, testimonies, this fun element to it, and then you break and everybody goes home. I think that's really the amount of, of things you can do, is simply go ahead and say, hey, once a quarter, we're going to do this because we think, finding a mentor is important. Having those conversations are important, and doesn't put students or adults at risk. It's happening at the church, and there you go. Maybe that's a way forward. I'd love to hear your comments about that. Leave me a comment down below what you think about this type of mentorship style. I'm just kind of free flowing off the brain of how I would do it if that was a thing. But right now, I'm happy with the adults that are in our church. I have a lady in our church coming tonight that's coming to lead a game, and could that turn into a mentoring relationship? Sure. She's coming down to do one thing. She's an older saint in the church, but I think that's great. And I want students in our youth ministry to know who those older saints are. And she came to me and said, "Hey, I have this real fun game that she said you should do with the kids." And I was like, "Yeah, no, maybe I'm sensing that you should do this game with the kids." And so she's going to come down and do it. So once again, mentorship can be accidental, and it can be on purpose. So just watch out for look for those opportunities to connect those generations together. All right. And that's it, really. I mean, my other thought, I think I'm going to go ahead and save that. I think we've gone for about 20 minutes. And if you have a question at all, by the way, and you have something, just go ahead and put it in chat right now. And until, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes. And if you have, something you'd like me to answer, if you have a question about tonight, maybe you got something that you're doing, and if I can help you do that, I'd be more than happy to facilitate that. Let's see. Jennifer Whitty says, our youth group has a rule that a leader can never be alone with a student. This is our first of having you. So we're learning. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? No one-on-one. Okay. You know what? I think that's fair, Jennifer. I think it's fair about not having one-on-one. I think I pretty much explained that in as far as the mentorship, which is really discipleship. So in your first year of having youth group, of not having that one-on-one, and I would imagine that means, and correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free, like I said, explain it further in the comments if you need to, is that one-on-one, is it outside the church or inside the church or both? Inside the church, sure, you want to meet in a fairly public place, not behind closed doors. Once again, you're just reducing the risk of that one-on-one contact, of saying, hey, we don't want to put an adult or a student in danger of any gossip. I mean, that's really what we want to do, is we want to protect both the student and the adult from any, appearance of evil, as Scripture says. And so that if you as the youth leader can't do one-on-one, make sure your one-on-ones happen in public. Your one-on-ones are just micro conversations that you're having at church. So when you see them, you're seeing them at church. And so if they're not allowing you to do one-on-one off campus, once again, they may be doing that. They are doing that to probably protect you. They're saying, look, don't do one-on-one. Ask them if a Zoom call is okay. Once again, you're not in person. Ask if a Zoom call is okay. If you have at least two students, which is not one-on-one, so maybe the answer is two students, right? Maybe it's some sort of thing like that where you're organizing these little groups of twos and threes. It doesn't have to be a large group thing, but if you do groups of twos or threes for a breakfast or lunch or dinner, and then do your one-on-ones before youth service, right? If you're allowed to, not meet, and I say meet, but if you're in a public area, you're having a conversation. You're not doing a one-on-one in the sense of, hey, I'm going to meet you at my house or do this thing. You're saying, hey, look, I'm having these little micro conversations of one-on-one with these various students to be able to meet a need that they might have. And so I would go along with that. I would go along because it'd be a little weird. And if you're a guy, it's really super weird. If you're asking your pastor, look, I'm really opposed to this one-on-one thing. Why can't I be alone with a student? Okay, clearly that doesn't sound good coming out the mouth at all. So when you say it that way, and once again, the church is and I don't know their position, but I can only guess that they're trying to protect both the youth leader, which we've seen lots of youth leaders get in trouble. So that's a big thing. We want to protect the children, and we don't want any appearance of evil. So I would just say, look, these one-on-ones, turn them into twos and threes. Twos and threes are as good as one-on-ones, because the one-on-ones can happen in micro conversations before youth, after youth, in church. There's at least 2 or 3 times that you're in church where you can have these little conversations. Also, if you have an altar time in your church, right, and somebody comes down for prayer, well, that's one-on-one time, right? It's just not off campus. It's just not away from, the eyes of people. And I think that's really, really critical that we all, as youth pastors, make sure that we don't put ourselves into a situation where people can talk or people can say something or things are gossiped about. And that's part of, because let me tell you something, if you do a one-on-one outside the church with a student for whatever reason, and then you do that over and over again, well, the very thing that you want to do can be spoiled by the gossip. And even though your motives are 100% pure, even though you have the best intentions, somebody else's ideas or somebody else's gossip or words or throwing shade. So all those things, all those things come back to hurt the thing that you really want to do, which is minister to this student. And so Jennifer says, yes, it's in the church. That answers my question. That all makes sense. And I agree. Okay. Jennifer, thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for being a part today. And thank you for offering your question. If you have anything else, please let me know. Once again, I'll be back. Office hours will be happening 11 a.m. next Wednesday. Prayer, 8 a.m. Office hours at 11 a.m. We'll be back on track. So super, super glad to have you, Jennifer. Thank you for being here today. And those of you that are watching, if you maybe you catch this later on, if you like this video, be sure to go and give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment, a question for next week. If you have a question for next week, come back to this video and say, hey, Paul, I have a question. And I'll put it on the docket for next week to be able to answer that question. But happy to serve you guys today. So grateful for you guys. And I just hope that whatever work that you're doing tonight, Jennifer, if you got a meeting tonight, youth meeting tonight, God bless you. I hope that you have the best youth meeting ever tonight. I hope you crush it and God does some amazing things in the lives of your students. But I hope he also does some amazing things in your life as well. So, but that is it for today, guys. Thank you for joining me for Office Hours. And I will catch you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, hopefully 11 o'clock on Wednesday. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day, everybody.